Okay. Okay. Thank you again, Fambulem. Today again, we don't come here with a broadcast from Louisville, the state of Kentucky. Still, I have been here for the last, I think, 1 week now. And last week, we've been getting conversation. I think that the second week in the ongoing examination of um, the Anti-Corruption Commission, the weaponization of the ACC, how the ACC don't serve as a weapon in every presidential election since 2012. So I want to continue that conversation again today. Today will be the third week where we continue for look at that subject. We don't talk about the history of the ACC. We don't talk about the Chancery building case. And then last week, I think we did more profound conversation on how the ACC functioned in 2012, 2018, and most especially in 2020, leading up to the election of 2023 with the Chancery building case. So I want to continue that conversation day, and at the same time, I want to ask people then for share. But we all take a few minutes for at least share the link to people that we not the online, so the group will benefit from this conversation and join with. Today, I intend to make this conversation very short, not more than 1 hour, just for review, at least. What I intend to do today, now, for summarize all of the issues that we don't highlight and point inside this discussion, therefore go next. I still think, say, the subject of the ACC, therefore continue. We therefore examine the ACC more profoundly. We require maybe 3 or 4 more detailed conversation. So we don't do 2 weeks into the ACC. The first time we talk about the history of the Chancery building, the case of it, and I see reactions from different quarters after that. Last week, we deepened the conversation by showing more profound aspects of the ACC and why, since 2008, the ACC done lost in relevance. So I want to summarize that in a day, highlight the key points that we don't do, and then at the same time shows how the discussion going to go in the next period. So I will ask, make we share spend some few minutes and share the link, invite more people into the conversation. And like I said today, we'll make them very brief, but at the same time, very instructive. So maybe we'll take a small break and we'll come back shortly. Yes, so many developments before we come to the ACC. I know say plenty people go on for your my views on a number of developments or few developments that don't take place in the course of the last 1 week. Yes, I don't see people they join in. When I help you for share the link and invite more people. Over the last 1 week or maybe 2 weeks now, we don't see dramatic developments. We get for deal with the elections, parliament, the public elections of 2023, the debate around PR, proportional representation, and the news around the invitation of the ECSL, the bank governor, you know, a number of other things like that. So I know say plenty of people go on for hearing my own views on what I think about the discussion will happen at Parliament. I see the NGC, for example. NGC is parliamentary leader, Kande Yumkela, hold what you call a pre-legislative conversation where they invited civil society and a couple of other people for kind of for go, I think, get a conversation around the, proportional representation. I mean, already offer my views on the proportional representation in the public elections. I don't want to repeat myself on what I'd already say. From the onset, when I know say the idea or the whole conversation around the public elections of 2023, now we bring them out because now we've been highlight the fact that Parliament one pass secretly a law in a law way for change we elections, and we sufficiently educate people around that one day to the extent that ahead of the registration, people witness this difficulty. We say the laws effort being on the part of Parliament, especially parliamentary opposition and the ruling party for changing the laws that will make it difficult for people and for register. And at this point, we don't need to remind people the difficulties where everybody experience, everybody will decide for vote in that election, how them, the difficulties with they experience, voter suppression, and we point at the fact that there is also an effort for promote what we call candidate exclusion. Matter be you in we own view don't realize they no go win a free and fair election, even though it claims the fair competition, but there is every evidence now they point to the fact that the government don't want a free and fair election. And part of the process for do that now for make sure that people who want for register for the first time will get difficulty in registering for the elections. And we don't highlight that significantly in the last, from June to now, June, July, August, September, October, now we're into November, almost 5 to 6 months now, that conversation ongoing. And what we want to talk about is not the debate in Parliament. If Parliament be really serious about free and fair elections, then not for me even think about bringing in a new law. We get this whole debate around proportional representation because members of Parliament encourage and participate in the process of developing a new law with a change with electoral arrangement. That is no longer secret. It is something that is known and obviously witnessed by everyone and experienced by everyone. So we don't need to convince anybody who said Parliament up on that question. Parliament not only change electoral laws, they also give the Electoral Commission and the President extraordinary powers for determining the process of the election and how the elections are going to be conducted. So I don't want to repeat that one day. I just want to say all of this question around proportional representation, members of Parliament, the opposition largely, are not even opposed to proportional representation. We don't talk. It is in their own interest. Now, then your own side of the bargain. Smaller parties are in favor of that, but I will see how the thing unfold. But me think say that decide to initiate a conversation around proportional representation because the opposition leaders want to be seen to act as if they are opposition. But when I just go for review, what in Parliament don't do in the last 4 leading up to 5 years now, from the agreements that we don't pass to the approvals, budgetary allocations, approvals, budgetary estimates, we don't approve all these years. We're going to see the lack of sincerity and lack of real commitment on the part of parliamentarians, both in the opposition and the ruling party, for serving the national interest. So we don't need for debate that. But I think we'll go for examine. We don't determine on the side of the African Express for examine the role of Parliament and the complicity of Parliament in the 4 years of atrocities where Mother Bill don't commit, both constitutional, economic, and human atrocities where don't happen in the country. That is a different subject. So, key thing we for highlight now the fact that we don't arrive at a point where registration in the Electoral Commission don't carry out registration in an illegal manner. One, they cut the days and then the amount of time required for registration that we used to spend for register. They don't only do that and do registration half and half, what we call half and half registration, rationing of registration. We don't come on at that stage there now. Since the conclusion of the registration, we'll favor people that register. Now, ECSL don't decide to hold on to the registration, to the register, the voters register. By now, they should have published the provisional voters register for allow people to verify the details and see whether there are any anomalies or not. Political parties will not inspect the data and know whether the registration capture each and every qualified voter and what has to be done. Up to now, nobody is talking about it. They just don't go home. Instead of talk about the voters register, which is the most important aspect, the parliamentarian and the opposition parliamentarians don't decide for substitute for replace that conversation with another conversation, which is the union pretends that they are actually trying to hold government accountable on elections, but we watch them for see. So that said, I want to focus on the subject of today's conversation, which is the public elections of 2023, the role of the ACC, how in the last 20 years, the ACC, which is supposedly established, we set up in 2002 for reduce corruption, for end corruption, if you like, for protect the finances of Sierra Leone from being stolen. Instead, the ACC, just like the Central Bank of Sierra Leone, just like the judiciary, just like the police, all of these institutions are being progressively used for undermine democracy, for undermine multi-party politics. And in the case of the ACC, now one perfect example of an institution that has failed to serve its intended purpose, which is to fight corruption. Instead, it's been weaponized. It's been used as a weapon in the hands of politicians with power and politicians in power in the course of the last period for undermine, political party, fair competition within political parties. And we will now highlight how three examples who we need for discuss comprehensively. We'll continue for discuss that in the course of the next weeks, which is the current Chancery building case. We get for do, get nothing for do with corruption, but effort on the part of politicians in the ruling party and in the opposition for use the ACC as they had done in 2018 and in 2012 for affect the elections of 2023. In this case, both the opposition and the ruling party have decided to use the commission for target a single individual, a member of the political class, the same rogue political class that we've been talking about. And we don't highlight this. And the reason why we point out this now, because if really the commission want for talk about corruption, I mean really corruption, they want for use the Chancery building corruption case, then actually they have not included the people who actually commit the act of corruption where we report. And we say this why I may insist on this conversation simply because if the Chancery building case is the subject of a conversation at the courts of Sierra Leone or in the ACC or any side among Sierra Leoneans, now because we, the African Express, publish details about the Chancery building case. No media institution, no government institution, nobody no ever highlight that situation other than we. And what we highlight now the fact that in 2018, the government of the People's Republic of China transferred nearly $5 million to the government of Sierra Leone. And that money, the first transaction of that money, I'll carry the transactions and just know how the money came into Sierra Leone in 2018, the time when it came, the transaction reference, and at what point again the money left Salone and came to New York, almost $5 million. And that $5 million, basically the transactions happened at the time when Mother Bill was in power. And the Mother Bill and the officials in the Foreign Affairs Ministry in Freetown and the embassy officials in New York will carry out the transaction. None of them, or all of them, the principal actors, ministers, deputy ministers, ambassadors, deputy ambassadors, none of them are part of the trial as accused persons. Instead, they are part of the trial as witnesses against one minister who had served in the Foreign Affairs Ministry and had left the Foreign Affairs Ministry in 2018, more than a year before the transaction we report come out. Last week, I don't see conversation around coming from APC people and SLPP people and also NGC people we tend for questions, say, the report we talk about, not just money under Mother Building time, that then believe, say, there has been corruption, money stolen at the time where Mother Bill not been in a power. Basically, they are saying money was missing at the time when APC been in a power. So, but they don't talk about this to the point that they point about $2 million according to the way lost in 2016, 2017. So, and then say me for go back and talk about 2016, 2017, or 2015, or which So me tell them, say, what we reported is the evidence in front of us. Bank transaction relating to money transferred in 2018, come out from China camp, received by Mother Bio young people and transferred in 2019, and in the name of constructing an embassy, that was never done. So the question is, what happened to that money? Where is the money? And why did you not arrest the people? So and I say, those of you who are talking about 2015, 2016, 2017, or 2011, I pose 3 questions. The first question is, what up to now we have not seen any evidence. Those who are talking about $2 million or $5 million or whatever amount of money we lost before 28, before the time we report about, have not shown us any bank statement, any transaction number, any reference relating to the money they believed was missing at the time when Madabi was not in power. The only evidence that's available out there is the evidence produced and published by the African Express, and it only include within transaction bank statements from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where they show exactly the specific amounts of money, how they come inside, how they take them go New York, how they withdraw, how they lodge them. Nobody has challenged that evidence to be untrue. Instead, they pretended that the evidence does not exist, then decide to talk about something else. So, as an obligation, it is our responsibility, not just as journalists or professionals who bring this story to light, but at the same time as citizens, for correct and lay the record straight. And that is the purpose of this conversation, why we have to repeat this conversation and continue this conversation over and over, so that the ordinary Sierra Leoneans who risk being confused, who risk being misinformed, who risk being misled by some of these miscreants, some of these dishonest individuals around, for making them able to get the correct information. And we still pose the challenge. Say, show us evidence that is beyond the evidence we have produced. That's one. Secondly, we challenge each and anybody in government, in political parties, whether they are opposition, ruling party, for come forward and tell you, say, the information will be published, not true. We are ready for defend that information and sure. They cannot. They have not, and they will never dispute that evidence. No evidence of transaction that we've published has been disputed and cannot be disputed by any individual. So that's one aspect. The second aspect is that if really the commission care about going back to the past for hold previous government officials are responsible for the corruption of the Chancery building case, the question is, why did they single only one individual, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs? At the time that Samura Kamara was Foreign Affairs Minister, he had 2 deputy ministers. There was also a Director General in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That Director General, that the equivalent of the Permanent Secretary in any ministry. Now, the very Director General at the time is a witness against the minister. no deputy minister was mentioned in the indictment papers. So what did they say? Now the minister no money take the money and put it in pocket. The director general not involved in a witness against the minister. So it is so easy for see that the Madabio regime, the opposition parties, the opposition politicians, and their supporters who have decided to connive with the government for use real situation with an embarrassment to the entire Sierra Leone, use as a weapon for fight the young flag bearer fight, for fight the young electoral fight, decide for cover up evidence, and also use the evidence that we've published or the story that we brought to light in the most dishonest way. And that is not how we fight for justice, for accountability, and transparency. Now that's not the point. That is the most dishonest way of pretending to fight corruption, when in actual fact, it is not about fighting corruption, it's about using the idea of corruption and an institution set up to fight corruption as a weapon against political opponents. And this is very unfortunate. So now this I want for lay into context and then explain also where the case is and give an update, and at the same time restate the evidence we publish so that we're able to understand and come back. So I take a small break and then we will come back. Today I don't intend to make this discussion longer. I want to just stop within an hour so we will be able to get way for put the summary of today with the previous 2 weeks discussion into more perspective before we move. In the future, as we progress, I will compare this Chancery building case to the Hajj Gate of 2018 and show say it was also tied to the same presidential elections of 2018, and also put the Timbergate story leading up to the elections of 2012 within the same perspective for show say the Anti-Corruption Commission has always functioned under the APC and today as a weapon against political opponents in every presidential election. In the case of 2012, it was designed as part of the process for the competition for who should be a running mate leading up to the election of 2018, and the role that the anti-corruption played, which did not materialize, and why it not materialized. We have to analyze that. The second one in 2018, leading up to 2018, I already remember the Hajj Gate, which was also designed as part of it. It should be read within the context of the elections of 2018. Anybody who don't want to do that would just be pretending. And now, leading up to the election of 2023, the same anti-corruption and the same process is being brought into the mix. And when we talk about state capture, we have to understand that the state capture is not just about the ruling party capturing institutions. Key opposition elements with their stolen money, stolen wealth, stolen influence, and can hijack the state and function as a parallel organization along with the state for muzzle democracy and use democratic institutions for further their own agenda. And we are not far from that in Sierra Leone. And we are looking at how Parliament, as an institution that is made up of, multi-party representatives, ruling party and opposition parties, have ganged up against the democratic ethos of Sierra Leone, against the rule of law, against transparency, against everything that we know about democratic governance and Sierra Leone. If we need to call them questions, they are out, no problem. In the last week, I talked about the dangers ahead, which is the fact that opposition politicians, many of whom are lawyers and their lawyer friends outside of Parliament, have helped Madabio for create a dangerous legislative environment, an oppressive legal environment, as part of the process for create a state that they intend to inherit. And this is not far from the parliamentary opposition and their allies outside of Parliament. And this network goes across parties. Now, just have a look at April 2021, how the effort of these elements for help Madabio for defending himself against the corruption, details of corruption and evidence of corruption involving himself, the president, the wife of the president, to the extent that they make it rehearse and develop a national lie. We can begin to lie, say, you go to a hotel in Japan and all of that. That event, the process for that event not only involve ruling party supporters and members, but it involved a significant sector of the opposition, politicians, lawyers, and journalists that you characterize as supposedly pro-opposition professionals in the country who decided to organize a town hall together for help for rescue Madabio from this evidence of corruption and all of that. And not Madabio they help no more. They see Madabio as a tool in their pursuit of power, the same way they use an Nkrumah as a shield for orchestrate some of the most unconstitutional operations that we then carry out in the period leading up, in the period between 2008 to 2018. We don't talk about this last week. I don't want for the state repeat myself, but I want for can get an update regarding where the court is, the proposed visit to New York by Fisher and the trial delegation, and then at the same time talk about the evidence of the case and why it is nothing. It don't have nothing to do with the Chancery building scandal. It has to do with the politics of elections, the electoral politics, and flag bearer competition within the APC, and also Madabio in your own strategy for make sure say he has a candidate of his own choice for contest with her in the election. We will allow her really comfortably and become a second-term president. So I will take a small break and come back. Okay, so make we not make the conversation long. I just want to read a couple of transactions. We talk say I get in front of me the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, the transaction, the bank statement between May 24 or 24 May 2019 and September 24, 2019. Why I read this one? For read the details of the transactions for showing the evidence. And this evidence, why I read so, it in the African Express website. We published a statement. We don't circulate on our WhatsApp and everything. We published this story way back in May 2021. In fact, now the first time when the issue of the Chancery building come up, it became the subject of national and international conversation among Sierra Leoneans and non-Sierra Leoneans as a scandal. The Anti-Corruption Commission decided say that they investigate the case. Even in the process of investigation, the commissioner first talks that the president gave an instruction for investigate. I think after that, we received criticism. They realized they don't make an error. He revised his statement. They say no. But if the president will tell them to investigate this case, why this case not been become the subject of an inquiry in the entire COI? I want to tell you, say the whole commission of inquiry will happen. The money where government spend for hire judges from Ghana, from Nigeria, and the one in a saloon, all the lawyer there, where the debate, the discussion always take place. Nobody not ever mentioned the Chancery building case. And the fact is Samura Kamara or whosoever in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs been thief money there. They never mentioned that. Then Komodi, then we do GTT report with all the details. There is nobody mentioned it. Number 3, they also do a forensic audit where the audit service even hire international help. They carry out forensic audit of government. All of these, which we call tripartite processes, 3 different processes where they make not be ever mentioned the Chancery building case, which points to the fact that if the Chancery building case now been an issue of interest, there be a scandal where the APC left behind, that money was actually stolen by the APC at the time, then for don't uncover them. More especially so, not to be until for don't escape Madabio. The Chancery building case, for remember, the Anti-Corruption Commission only charged this case in December of 2021. That is what we published the story May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, in the case, 7 months after we published. This was in 2021. Now the trial don't reach 1 year from when the case then a court. So why are this Gidis then I'll tell you now say Mother Bio first, before he become president, he was never coming to America. America not be ever give him visa. He applied for visa till they not able to give him visa. And the reason why he not been give him visa, because even the APC been talk say he get a very bad record, human rights record with the United States, to the extent that the United States refused him visas to come here. And coming to America was so important to Mother Bio that I've been part of the election campaign against Mother Bio, both within the SLPP and in the country, even among APC politicians. Their criticism, major criticism against Mother Bio, apart from when they say if you don't commit extrajudicial killings, Bambe Kamara and the 29 others, now the fact that they raised the visa issue or Mother Bio's inability to travel to America as a fundamental point of critique for assess the lack of suitability for becoming president of Sierra Leone leading up to the election of 2012. And it was an issue in the elections of 2018. So which means that the only reason why make America they give Mother Bio visa for come after denying him for a very long time, now the fact that Mother Bio was coming to the United Nations. Now, because of the only time we come America from now, for the most part, it has to do with his visit to the United Nations General Assembly. Any other meeting the way it happened subsequent to that one, they are just part of the UN General Assembly meeting on an extension of the UN General Assembly visit. So when Mother Bio Kana Power said the first thing first, we come America 2018, September of 2018, he came from China and came to America. So if the Chancery building case was a problem, the Chinese would have informed him when he visited China for say we give them money for building an embassy. They don't eat the money. But it was if they return after 2018, if we don't make an investigation and indict Samura Kamara since then. But they never did that. Which means even if the project itself had started, it was not the kind of scandal. If we did it, not we, because I laid this premise because there is this deceptive messages coming from opposition supporters, mostly APC, NDC. We decide for rack this story on top the young opposition colleague in this case, for pretending that we put the case on top of the man. No, the evidence we publish is different. And when I go read the website and say, so Mother Bio visited New York, the United Nations in 2018. He visited 2019. Even the time of COVID, he traveled to Lebanon, hired a whole plane, which cost over $1 million. Nobody at the time raised the Chancery building case. When Mother Bio go na Freetown, when the opposition supporters, the opposition lawyers and journalists and everybody come together and organize a town hall forum for making defend himself against Africanist press. We see the celebrating 3-year anniversary, April 2021. Mother Bio even lie to the whole country, say he go to Japan, which make the travel for the Pierre Salon image. He say go to Japan, they even refuse them entry in a hotel because the APC be left that day. Now we publish saying a lie, the lie. We should say the meeting will go now was paid for by the Japanese, they take money. We show all the details. If the Chancery building case Bindere was really a scandal that has to do with the opposition and the former foreign minister, when a major competitor against Mother Bio, somebody who has accused Mother Bio of stealing money while in office, and somebody who they had put on commission of inquiry with multiple accusations, including the fact say they traded Sarah Rutai, therefore we don't use the Chancery building case because it is a major case against the leading opposition or the former flag bearer of the APC in 2018. It has become the major case for them. They don't talk about Sarah Rutai, they don't talk about COI, they don't talk about any other thing, a white paper. What did they talk about the Chancery building case? That's the only thing where they say they hold on. So if it was really a case itself against the opposition, they would have held on to that case long since, because they look for evidence for prosecute. And the evidence, if the Africanist press had access to some of these records, the government get more access to, because I would think government they do now with they publish. If Madabio spend 1 million, Madabio go first know say don't spend 1 million before we know say don't spend 1 million. In fact, by the time they decide to spend 1 million, now the only person, the people that are close to them go know say don't spend 1 million. When I get the point? So it is only when Madabio don't think about, say, if I go take $100,000 at central bank, he tell the presidential secretary, Sandy, for say write to the financial secretary for say I want money. Financial secretary then instruct the accountant general. The accountant general then write to the bank governor so that transfer money to the account. Then send somebody for go take the money or transfer the money, go to another account, and they tell we go no. So which means if the Chancery building scandal was really a scandal against true corruption against Samura Kamara, the SLPP would have been the first to know about it. The anti-corruption would have been the first to know about it. The opposition politicians, when they work with Madabe, for don't be the first people that for don't know about it, because they don't work with Samura Kamara, na the Foreign Affairs Ministry since. Including the Director General, when a current witness, the Director General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, when one of the witnesses against Samura Kamara, we don't work under and for don't be the first person, the people that for know about this before time, before the report where African Express published. But it never existed. And the evidence what we publish, you're not going to do with 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016. No, it got to do with transactions that happened at the time that Madabio was in office. Those transactions began on the 27th of May 2019. The first transaction in code na FT 1914753090. And this is the transfer of funds to a company called Etixal in the name of the Chancery building. 7,665,845,946 leons 60 cents. The second transaction happened on the 13th of June 2019. The transfer code again, the transaction code na FT 1916454098. This, in fact, now a swift transfer to New York. Is payment in favor of the Sierra Leone UN delegation for the renovation of the Chancery building in New York, USA. Instead, now 7,665,845,903 leons 49 cents. Now, would have been a power on the 27th of May 2019 and the 13th of June 2019. In only stop there. On the, I'll still go again and show now. On the 31st of July 2019, they also transfer. The transaction code is FT 1921205200. And this is also another transfer will happen in the name of the renovation of the Chancery building. And this is 2,500,000,000, 2.5 billion, who was in power on the 31st of July 2019. Then another fourth transaction we then carry out again on the 16th of August 2019. This one get for do again in transaction code na FT 1922864450. This is also money transferred to New York in the name of the Chancery building. The amount is 9,330,000,000 leons. 9.3 billion at the time. 9.3 billion is $1 million in 2019. Who was in power in August 2019? Who was in power in July 2019? Who was in power in June 2019? Would have been in power in May 2019. In the current trial where they happen, so we wanna check All the people that will carry out this transaction, they include at the time the people that were at the Foreign Affairs Ministry in New York around 2019, 2020, 2018, 2019, 2020. Now, Ali Kaba, later you get Nabila Tunis. All of them two people there, then get deputy ministers, then get director generals. We're working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In New York, you get the ambassadors and deputy ambassadors, two deputy ambassadors. All of them people there, yeah. None of them is in the dock. They all know they inside the case as accused persons. They never account for this money. This money now, okay, now we even say APC been received $10 million for build this embassy, for renovate this embassy and construct it. They not do it. Now in 2019, then transfer this money, say they go build, then they go renovate the same embassy. Assuming the same APC will not take that the new money, they don't eat it. How about this nearly $5 million, $4.6 million that they transferred? The other transaction that they, I'm not going through. And up to now, as I tell you, so transfers are still being made to the New York mission to the New York mission. We're going to show records of them one day. I will try to read some of them now, if time allows me. So what am I saying? The case we have in Freetown, involve any of these ministers and ambassadors and deputy ambassadors, deputy ministers under Madabi within at the Foreign Affairs Ministry. We process this transaction. I read for now. So the question is, what happened to the almost $5 billion transferred by the Madabi administration and its officials in 2019 in the name of renovating the Chancery building in New York? Now, if the crime may not happen under Madabi, other APC, some of them may not eat money. How about this money away? Then they don't send now, say that they go build it, they go construct the building. Nothing has been done in the building. Even if we have to assume or take these crooked opposition politicians and their supporters and we don't join with the government for confuse people and use this as a political case, their own argument that money assigned for the embassy had been stolen in the days of the APC. How about this money that was transferred? Why is Ali Kaba a witness and not an accused person? Why is Kai a witness and not an accused person? Why all the ambassadors, deputy ambassadors in New York and the deputy ministers under Ali Kaba and time and Madabi and time, none of them is in the dock? Now, if we go back to APC time, say money assigned for the embassy was also stolen by APC politicians, why is it that you get only one minister who served in the Foreign Affairs Ministry as an indictee in the case? This is not a smell witch hunt. Is this how you fight corruption? That's how they fight corruption, by selecting. I may not care who is the APC. I'm just looking at the theft of public money. If money there for the country, that money is stolen by APC politician or stolen by SLPP politician or NGC politician. It is money stolen by politicians, Sierra Leonean politicians, from the public coffers of Sierra Leone. It's a crime committed by politicians. So one set of thief man, they know thief money, and talk say the other set of thief man will deny for trial. That is not a trial. It is not a trial. It is nothing less than the pursuit of justice. And that we try to say. So I don't need to know how the money moved from New York. Let me look for the other statement again, where they show the transactions, how these transactions also were received, because they talk say, yes, the history of the transaction shows the fact that these transactions are basically money given to Sierra Leone by the Chinese. And all of this information then at the African Express website. Now we'll publish it. We'll only publish the money that transferred in 2019. We'll also show how the money came at the country. Basically, the funds were negotiated, or the commitment to help Sierra Leone renovate the embassy building in New York. That commitment was secured by the Ernest Bai Koroma government before they left power or when they were in power. And the evidence in front of me that I have seen, now nobody ever produced any other evidence other than this we talk about. So if you want to talk about 2008, 2009, 2010, up to where we are, that evidence is not in the public domain. Nobody never showed it. The only evidence we did on the 2nd of March 2018, we don't publish details of fund transfers from the Republic of China to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation in 2018. Basically, the money that we saw, what we saw is that money started coming into the Sierra Leone Foreign Affairs Ministry from China on the 2nd of March 2018, and a few weeks to the election. And this money, receipt of funds on behalf of the Ministry of Commerce of the People's Republic of China in favor of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. The money will only show the transaction code, which is FT 1806180003, a transaction processed or received at the Bank of Sierra Leone on the 2nd of March 2018. The details, we also see, say, the transaction details show, say, the money was in fact sent to the Sierra Leone government from the ministry, Chinese Ministry of Commerce. The Ministry of Commerce of the People's Republic of China. And they sent this money to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. How much was it? The first one was 1,350,952,200 leones. Then a second match, the only transaction we will see from relating to this embassy building that came at this time. Now, if anybody get evidence of money that came before, then let them publish it. We know they say the evidence, no, the fact of the matter, we haven't seen, until we could provide evidence. What will be the show now evidence of what we've published? We don't put out. Nobody never denied this one from Foreign Affairs, both in the past and the present politicians, and none will deny this. Now, the second money, and this one, the 2nd of March, you could say APC been in power. And indeed, this money will also show the entire bank statement of 2018. This money was in the account when Madabio took power. So, on the 25th of May 2018, by this time, Madabio, they don't take power now, 2018, May. By April, they don't swear in Madabio. By May, they were election we don't pass. By May, now they don't be in office. I think about them, they don't already be in office. The transaction code was or is FT 1814560878. This again, the receipt of funds by order of the Embassy of the People's Republic of China in Sierra Leone. So this one, in fact, the Chinese government had transferred the money to the Chinese embassy in Freetown, and they now transfer this money into the account of the Foreign Affairs Ministry. This again, the 1,191,274,393 leones. The other transaction again, we come here, happened on the 25th of June 2018. Transaction again is FT 1817606980. You know, then call FT, where you read bank statement. FT basically is a fund transfer, and the abbreviated, the financial abbreviation for the transfer of funds. If not TT, it's teller transaction. We say they take you go to now before the teller and cash and give you. In this case, again, it's receipt of funds by order of the Embassy of the People's Republic of China in Sierra Leone in favor of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In fact, the transaction reference and DD, transaction codes and DD. So we publish again in 2018 all of the transactions showing how this money can. In fact, in the article we publish, we say African Express reviewed a total of 134 transactions made by foreign affairs officials between 2nd March 2018 and 27 December 2018. The transactions included 125 withdrawal transactions, totaling $1 million in 2018, and 9 fund transfers, all into the Foreign Affairs Ministry's account in 2018 alone. We noticed that 3 of these transactions totaling 30 billion, where money is paid into the Foreign Affairs Ministry by the Chinese government as support towards the renovation of the Sierra Leone Chancery building in New York in 2018. The first of these transactions was paid by the Chinese government to the Sierra Leone Foreign Affairs Ministry on the 2nd of March. In the weeks leading up to the elections of 2018, this particular amount with transaction ID, will show the transaction ID, transferred from Beijing by the Chinese Ministry of Commerce, remained in the foreign affairs account up until 20 April 2018, after the presidential elections that brought the Madabio administration into office. We observed 3 specific withdrawal transactions totaling $84,000, representing almost half of the transferred amount, no, $840,000 transferred amount from the Chinese government for the renovation of the Chancery building that were withdrawn from the account between 20 April 2018 and 22 May. We equally identified 2 subsequent wire transfers, also carried out in May 2018 and June 2018, respectively, from the Chinese government. So basically, the evidence cannot be more detailed than we have it in the website. So, what did the government do and the opposition people then? In fact, I understand, say, when we publish this, some of the opposition people are glad. They say, we don't get away for whole, because they look for evidence, they're not accused, even when they talk about Stella Rutile and all of this, they have no evidence, no tangible financial record. Now, the record we show now, a record of how money came at the Sierra Leone Foreign Affairs Ministry account 2018, then transfer in 2019, we might be in power. They chop all the money, nearly $5 million. They haven't accounted for it. When we publish and say whole Ali Kabara and the other people who are in charge, including Madam Joseph, should answer for this, because there is no way foreign affairs officials in Freetown and in New York will steal $5 million without the knowledge of the president. The president knew about this. In fact, it was a scandal. Now, one of the reasons would make it decide for move Ali Kabara from New York and sack them. In fact, 2 weeks before we published the story, 2 weeks before we published the story, Madabio been on changes because it been on cause an international embarrassment in New York. We are the neighbors. We are now suing the government. We don't show these details systematically. We don't even publish letters and testimonial statements from the neighbors, engineers attached to the neighbors regarding this. Information is abound. Now the question is, how and why did the government of Sierra Leone and the opposition are happy that this evidence is abandoned, not spoken about, instead is being recasted and put on the head of politicians who, one minister only, who remained a major contender in the APC for the flag bearer ticket, and who also is a potential strong challenger to Madabio in the elections of 2023, if he were to become the flag bearer. So it is a case, no way how you turn them. You see, the opposition or the ruling party or use evidence published by Africanist press, discard the evidence, and decide to use the story and rack up the story against a politician who they are all fighting against. Have I committed a crime by saying this truth? We're not going to decide for ourselves. So the Chancery building case, in my own judgment, and based on this evidence and what I have seen, and the crooked nature of the Anti-Corruption Commission and the politicians in the opposition, across opposition parties and the ruling party, will decide for false, for misuse this evidence and refuse to go after the politicians who actually stole public money and decide for use the case against their own opponent. It informs me that the Anti-Corruption Commission of Sierra Leone has become a useless institution. No use. It has failed to serve its intended purpose. And this is not just one incident. When you review the commission activities in 2018, leading up to the election of 2018, leading up to the election of 2012, you will see this calculated move by politicians in power for use the commission and the idea of corruption as the basis for disqualifying their own colleagues then in a competition will relate to the presidential elections. And this is the one that we don't suffer this, and the one that we don't orchestrate it. They know exactly this is the case. So why are they do this conversation now? I am beginning to call on the people of Sierra Leone, say we don't need Anti-Corruption Commission anymore, because now we don't find out, say we'll put the Anti-Corruption Commission, since we've Alcolia come as Anti-Corruption Commission, I will not ever get an Anti-Corruption Commission. What we've got is a commission that was given legal powers, forget independent powers, therefore prosecute, instead of go after people that genuinely in the fight against corruption, has been successively used by lawyers who have taken over the commission through a new law for fight their own political opponents. And that is not healthy for democracy. It's not healthy for the rule of law. It's not healthy for collective national development and progress. So on that note, we for begin now for demand say government should refuse to give budgetary allocation to Anti-Corruption Commission. We not for refund Anti-Corruption Commission anymore. In fact, we for dismantle the Anti-Corruption Commission. The Anti-Corruption Commission is not needed in the governance structure of Sierra Leone. If we want for control corruption, we want for get rid of graft, we want to get rid of the misuse of public funding, let us build the entire control mechanism within the system. One way for do that, the digitization of the economy, but on one separate thing. But already there are transparency systems. If Parliament able exercise in supreme oversight responsibility, the Parliamentary Account Committee or Accountability Committee alone is enough to make sure that they hold public officials accountable and responsible. But in a situation where anti-corruption commissioners can even take Ghana must go back, so go bribe in a parliament, where commissioners of the Anti-Corruption Commission will bribe parliamentarians for past budgetary allocation, where the Minister of Finance bribes parliamentarians for approved budgets, where MDAs, political appointees will have to bribe appointment and legislative committees for maybe able to get their way through parliament. Do you expect parliament to actually perform its function? These are things where everybody knows. Parliamentarians know it. People who interact with parliament know that bribery, there's no institution that is prone. The only institution where they take bribe past policeman and as alone a parliamentarian in parliament. Everybody know that. Legal people who are supposed to make law, enforce, help, call them honorables. They take bribes. They take bribe past policeman. We talk about police bribery when a penny police they collect in the street, but when you look parliamentarian on a honorable and the bribe when they collect in kind of the only people that way they take bribe past policeman as Sierra Leone, now on a parliamentarian. It's fact. They know it as members of parliament, their supporters know it, the members of cabinet and various MDA heads who interact with parliament, they know this is fact to the extent that even we've had stories of anti-corruption commissioners both in the past and in the present bribing members of parliament. Forget their way through parliament. Fact. So it's a rotten system. Complete. You just need to look at how governance is operating. But you refuse to acknowledge these things because of party affiliations, your love and support for corrupt politicians. That is what it is. So in this case, we have to begin to call on donor partners, international organizations for saying you have to stop giving money to the ACC. What we need to strengthen is the independence of the audit service. Credible audit service as it is right now. We not get no auditor general. We have no audit service, because when you have a situation where an individual is appointed to act as an auditor general, will not qualify, not a chartered accountant, has not been approved by parliament, is not qualified to superintend government audit for over a year. Parliament not even bother about that. Is that a country where you talk about rule of law and transparency, and you hear these people talk about MCC scorecard and non-pass control of corruption? They have not read the card. When I go read the report and see not just the progressive decline. When I compare to 2018 when they just kind of power, I will see. Say scored 79%, but read it against where they started in 2018. But not only that, look at all the other indices in terms of governance, resource management, environmental management, respect for women, stuff like that, the gender questions. In totality, it tells you people do not only lack confidence, but the government is not effective in the running of the affairs of the state, not to the individual branches in totality. But we live in a country where propaganda and people's lack of depth in terms of how we understand governance issues, how we read, public statements and understand them and analyze them, put them into perspective. But then a separate conversation. What am I talking about? If we need for control corruption, we don't need the ACC anymore. The ACC was introduced as part of the post-war restructuring of the state, where complementary institutions were set up that would supposedly help to curtail all of these failure of the branches of government, the various three arms of government in the real sense of function. So the need for build complementary agencies. We had anti-corruption laws even during colonial rule. During colonial times, we had anti-corruption laws. This is not the first time in the post-war thing. There are anti-corruption legislations that predated that happened during colonial time. The theft of public money is a criminal offense. Now that makes you get criminal law enforcement agencies, the police, the criminal investigations department. So where you have an effective oversight from Parliament, the Parliamentary Accountability Committee, the PAC of Parliament, the Audit Service, a well-empowered Auditor General, Accountant General's Department, an independent central bank, an independent central bank governor, some of these control mechanisms that should prevent leakages and theft of public money should be there. Where somebody steals money, it becomes a criminal offense. It becomes a business of the police to investigate the theft of public funding, arrest and charge people into court. The court will carry out, dispense justice, and punish lawbreakers, whether they are public thieves or petty thieves. That's the law there for. So we will decide not to get an ACC after the war for hope say this ACC go able now for hold everybody accountable, including even parliamentarians. But it has not served that objective. It has not. Why do we have to continue funding a public institution that is now being used effectively by politicians, mostly lawyers, against their own political opponents within the opposition and in governance? That's what we've had. Now, this makes it say they will arrest teachers, but they will not arrest real thieves of public funds. So this now what me one for drill that the ACC has actually failed to live up to its own expectations. It don't fail as an institution with help for enforce transparency and accountability and develop democracy. It has served as a tool since Ernest Kuruman changed the law. We empowered the commission, give them autonomy in 2008, then get the 2008 Act, the power for independently prosecute, and now they begin appoint lawyer then for head the commission. Check all the cases that were known. The major case there, where the Reebok cases, they have to do with cases relating to elections. The Timbergate are one of the biggest cases. They have Satukaba case, they all the one that we review them all. You see the political implications of the case. Their relationship to elections. Now you take the Timbergate, there was nothing in it other than the question of elections. You take the Hajj Gate, it has to do with the elections of 2018. You check the Chancery building case, it got to do with the next election. And both the opposition party, with effect within a party for flag bearer situation, and the ruling party, they all find mutual interest, unity of opposites, opportunists have found a unity of opposites. Their common interest is the disqualification of one politician that is a threat to their competition in the APC and the national contest as well. That is not how you fight corruption. That is the perfect example of how not to fight corruption. It is a perfect example. Now, we don't arrive at a point where one case has gone on endlessly for a year. The Chancery building trial has been ongoing. Even the people who commit the crime that we reported are not on trial. But even at that, it has gone on endlessly. Adjournment, they don't get over 50 adjournments now. The case not still done. Now, what we are talking about is that the judge don't say, he said they moved now for Canada, New York, for look at the building. Now, remember, we show video of the building and the status of the building. I go right up at talk and I show the building there, its status. What happened to the $5 million that was transferred in 2018? Why individuals who transferred the money who were in charge have not been held accountable? When I go to think about that question, they will take a small break. Okay, I will summarize this conversation, and then we'll end there. But thank you for being here today. I see we get appreciable audience, and we'll make this conversation available again on audio once we complete them. Let me take a small break, and then we'll come back. Okay, yeah. So for me to make this brief, I want to talk about last week we mentioned say the judge when a Fisher after a year, they don't decide say all the people that now the court to they all now they move kind of na New York. I don't talk about you say one can't see the building. But the fact of the matter, apart from the strange nature of the thing, the essence of that, what we concerned about the trip. Now, whether that particular visit, in the first place, we don't know see the trial, not get nothing to do with the evidence that was published by African experts who actually investigate and bring this issue to light. That are one. The dishonesty of the trial are one aspect. Now, even with the dishonesty of the trial and the fact that people that will commit the crime that we've reported about, the theft of the public funds that we've spoken about are not on trial. They are instead witnesses. We also don't see say the judge and the court they try for spend more money, losses. So on the 20th of October, the judge passed orders and say them for Canada, New York. In fact, them for don't Canada, New York, but I think they get delayed. They would expect say this Monday or anytime after Monday or from Monday now, they will be in New York and for there for 1 week. But according to the court papers, they will have been in New York from the 30th day of October to the 6th day of November. And in the following manner, the Judge Fisher, he did request a return air ticket for the presiding judge, a member of business class ticket, and a court registrar from Freetown to New York and back to Freetown. He say he need return air ticket for 2 prosecutors from the ACC from Freetown to New York and back to Freetown. Per diem, the judge want per diem. Fisher say he want collect per diem back in this case here. For can New York, for can see the building. They have unfinished building want to see. I don't give them free video, then 3. It's up the building, front of the building, and everything. The judge still say he want business ticket for car, he want collect per diem again for car. So he need per diem for the presiding judge and the court registrar for the duration of the visit. He need per diem for the prosecutor, for the prosecutors the way they can, the ACC people they count for the duration of the trip. Then they need return air ticket for the first and third accused person from Freetown to New York and back to Freetown. They also need return air ticket for the lawyer that will represent the first, third, and the 5th accused from Freetown to New York and back to Freetown. The return air tickets, the judge say, therefore be routed or therefore buy them from Freetown, therefore travel from off Freetown, then go Dakar, and from Dakar then come New York and return. So the judge don't pass the order since 20. So they expect them for car. So when I wait in New York, when I will look, when I see Fisher, when I also go to the building and say. So we calculate all of this expenditure. The only possible way to say they pay for himself and lawyer for come from the court papers. Samura Kamara say he go pay for himself. For can't see the building with your lawyer for me. That's all can. So the court they move. There are 2 parts to this. Anti-corruption may tell we say who publish this story. August they say they investigate. They say they don't recall all the people there. The Minister of Foreign Affairs put press release say they don't sack people then force. They don't suspend the people there. Anti-corruption, they don't investigate, don't go China, and don't go so. So if anti-corruption don't investigate, they don't get at the evidence, they don't charge the matter one whole year, I'd expect to say there should be no need for an international visit by the court. The one that the court now, the judge, the prosecutor, the court registrar, the lawyer, and now the people who they accuse of all the load na plane then car. Who sense that they make? It appeared, say, the judge want for help the prosecution for investigate. Personally, the judge want be investigator. Now he said one can investigate the building for see. And what are we talking about? Not to say building not in Apde, the building in Apde, the money that in 2018, Mother Builder received money from China, say they want for renovate the building. 2019 and transfer the money in New York City to renovate the building. Face the money all done lost. The building they outside there. What did the judge want for car look? If you want for look at the bank statement, we go check. Ali Kabamos on a transfer. Where this money here? Nabila Tunis there. Where this step? What have been there as minister? What have been doing with this money? Ambassador, we've been this. What have been doing with this money? Kai. They're not inside the trial. They're not. The judge now can see the building. This building where all man run away left. It didn't now. It don't become a problem. In fact, the building they pan undervalued because the building they as when I don't see the equivalent of dirty box. Cockroach then did arata then did everything. We rain car, they go right inside. I've been not shown at the video. In fact, because of the status of the building, all the property in another area they value they reduce, including the fact that the other neighbor then the building they almost destroyed their own house. We worth over $5 million. It depend depreciate. What did the judge one can do? Where they ask for per diem and ticket and everybody. For our expenditure, we calculate all of that. We're talking over $100,000. Just in ticket for continue for delay a trial that has no merit, no basis, abandoning the evidence, looking for evidence, and create the unnecessary basis for trial. And not forget, say, the suitability of Fisher for being a judge for practice law in a salon, the lawyer SSF in a salon, and they don't force challenger. Say the man not qualified for practice for serve as lawyer in a salon. Talk less of being a magistrate now, a judge. And from when they take as judge, we might be doing all the cases that we don't deal with now political cases. Now in prosecute Paulo Conte and treason trial. Now in prosecute all the other people them from Quetta then to Herbert George Williams and I think the Rami then, all the one and the APC politicians. The treason trial. Then from then I don't come out now in the judge will dismantle a whole political party executive from the diaspora executives to the national executive to the regional executive, to the district executive. They go down, nice scatter APC. He take the party, he give Cherry Coco half, the big half. They give Alpha Peter Conte the other half. Then two half they are from when they take over, they don't do nothing, they don't scatter the party. PPRC, when are the institution will respond for monitoring the thing, what did PPRC man say? He said they don't tire. That means the PPRC commissioner for just resign one time because when you are unable to carry out your constitutional mandate to regulate the activities of politicians and political parties, what you are saying is that the PPRC has no significance, has no importance. So you see, that same Fisher, now the judge in this case, we can deal with one of the leading opposition politicians again at the country, where Madabio in the last election able beat and passed 2% or up to 2% in 2 rounds of the elections. Samura Kamara, who many in the APC did not want as flag bearer in 2018 and still do not want. I mean, some of the politicians who contested, who has their own flag bearer interest. And they have not taken, they do not see injustice in this case, they see it as an opportunity to eliminate one of their contenders to make way for themselves. That is very dishonest. Nobody knows for seek for being a national leader, a president through dubious means. Power and politics should be based on a competitive democratic environment. If you be say you thief power at a political party, how you expect to thief power at the national level? If you thief power at the national level, how you going to deal with the world? Through that process of stealing? We are concerned about it, not as supporters of your parties. No. Every government that comes to power is going to be one that is going to affect us as citizens. Right now, as a Denaya, I cannot go to Sierra Leone. Why? Because we get a roguish president who is not only undemocratic, but has become a sanguinary despot, somebody with bloodthirsty, and not only bloodthirsty, but he has his friends in the opposition in parliament who are working constantly with him to embolden him and create laws and policies where they help for become the bloodthirsty tyrant that they have made him to be. And this is why we speak about some of these issues, because they're going to affect us as citizens. We are citizens of Sierra Leone. And not only that, when the politicians, when they do this harm, now the same one, they try to accuse we say we are dangerous people there, we incite people there in the country. When you are passing laws and creating policies and carrying out activities that are detrimental to the peace and stability of the country and destroying democracy, you're not talking about that. So that is where we are. More money being stolen in the name of travel. More money is being taken in the name of per diem, in this case, in pursuit of injustice. Everybody needs to be concerned about this. So now that I want to talk about today. In future, I don't already talked to you about the evidence of the case, and I still they call the question. Those of you who want to talk about 2016, $2 million, $1 million, $10 million that was missing before Madabio came to power, please, when I go talk about that. And please help us with the evidence. We'll publish it if you have the evidence, concrete evidence. I am not in a position to justify for you your own accusations, your own allegations. I publish things that I have evidence of, which I can substantiate, evidence that nobody can dispute, can deny, other than for talk say yes, that's way for B. And in this case, we still pose the question, if you are concerned about the corruption of previous government officials, why did you arrest only one official, one minister? How about the deputies and other senior foreign affairs officials who work at the foreign affairs ministry at the time? You haven't brought them. So, but that one day I want for, on that note, I want for see if we go end the conversation here today. Next week, we could move the conversation forward by examining the incidents of 2018, the Hajgate, and how it related to this Chancery building case. Then in subsequent discussion, we also talk about the 2012 Timbergate and how it also similar and related to the same thing, flag bearer fight, you know, presidential elections, and all of this madness, where then they use state institutions for carry out. And I am beginning to call on Sierra Leoneans who believe in democracy, who believe in democratic institutions, for make we begin to think about how for call for a campaign for the dismantling of the ACC. Not only that, for make we also investigate all of the commissioners who have served as ACC commissioners at one point or another, so that we review the operations of the Anti-Corruption Commission in the last 20 years, from 2002 up to now. We examine both the financial operation, the administrative operation, the legal operation, and all of the way non-do, whether they've lived to the expectation. That is where I'm heading with this conversation. We're going to review each and every commissioner individually, their qualification to become commissioner, how they operated, their financial operations, and everything where they don't do since they're in office. It's time we begin to examine these institutions and how they have been used by politicians, both in the ruling party and the opposition, in furtherance of their own political objectives, as opposed to enhancing democracy, accountability, and good governance in Sierra Leone. So I want to thank you all for your time. My goal was to make this a 1 hour conversation, and I'm happy that we're a little bit above 1 hour, but we are within that range. See you next week, and stay blessed, stay safe. We look forward to the begin call for the voters register. The voters register. We need the voters register. ECSL must provide the provisional voters register. People who have registered should know and see their details and verify them. That's one. Secondly, if the opposition at parliament, the NGC, APC, they're serious about free and fair elections, they should start by investigating the corruption surrounding the procurement. If the commission they thief money for public elections, which guarantee do we have that they cannot steal the votes of the people? That is what they should be talking about. So thank you all, and see you next week. This has been the Frontline Show, and we continue to appreciate then and now for providing us the unrestricted access to a platform that we are using consistently to talk to our people. At a time when many of the opposition supporters and their parties, their leaders, are trying to stifle free speech and truth, we have a brother and a channel that has given us the opportunity to communicate our voices, our views, and our information to the public. We therefore continue to do this. As I say, the truth does not require a crowd to be told. It requires a few determined men and women, or just a determined group of men and women who are committed to telling that truth. And that commitment is what we have. So see you next week, and thank you very much. My name is Chernoh Alphaba, and I have been your own conversationalist with the Frontline Discussion, Frontline Show. Thank you. See you next week.